All right, Commissioners Blair and Castone, I just got confirmation that we are live streaming and the meeting is being recorded. So take it away.
Thank you, Chief of Staff Bund. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our roundtable for task force members. We have looked at a map and we have concerns that we will be looking at again as a second go round. Welcome to the public. Welcome to any media that might be in attendance. We're going to start off with my co-chair, Commissioner Castone, to give us kind of an update status, to let everyone who's attending, it might be their first time attending, let them know where we are in the process and where we're going tonight. Co-chair, take it away.
Thank you, Co-Chair Blair, Commissioner Blair. Good evening once again, everyone. I'm Co-Chair Commissioner Joel Castone, specifically at SMD 7F07. Tonight will be our task force third roundtable as we are going over the map they're presenting for our redistricting assignment that we have before us. I would like to inform you that we have already went through 3 robust rounds of viewing maps, and we finally got down to a specific map that received 11 votes for hold. What that means in the context of what we're being doing, we looked at maps and we pretty much evaluated them based on 3 criteria. The first one would be denial, maps that we want to simply decline, think that it doesn't cut the mustard. Then we also looked at maps that we thought that some portion of the map, which we classify as being partial, that we would consider those points. And then we also looked at maps that we said that we as task force members decided it should be accepted in its entirety with the opportunity to make some tweaks. Well, after those 3 robust rounds of analyzation and presentation, we have a single map that we have decided to look at depth and take jabs at it and look at it, some of the points that we heard from the public, as well as different S&Ds and commissions that will be affected by that map. So tonight's agenda will be particularly and specifically looking at those points and how we can rectify or reconcile that map to fit a better Ward 7. With that being stated, we have a final day that will be the 28th of this month, March the 28th, that we will have our final vote. We're hoping that tonight, in being successful, and a huge shout out to all the task force members. I got to say that is just real as ever, because this is our group of individuals who have sacrificed their time to volunteer their time to give their input for what they believe is best for their community. And I think that needs to be recognized all the time. And so I definitely huge shout out to every task force member. We don't always see eye to eye, yet we come together in the words of Michelle Obama, we can agree to disagree. Or was that Barack Obama? The Obamas that said that way, to agree to disagree, right? And so in honor of that spirit, we want to agree to disagree on some points, but we're going to come to an agreement. And with that being stated, I think that would be it. Again, I want to highlight the 28th will be our final day of convening, the 28th of this month, which will be a Monday. We haven't, I believe if we still sticking with this time frame, 5 or 6 will be the time frame. But Monday the 28th, we will come together, and as I stated, today's agenda, we'll be looking at a map. I think the name of the map is 7F Stronger. I have my notes right here. We'll get to pull it up in a second when task force member Tamika Bowden help us to pull up the maps. But we'll be looking at that particular map and seeing how we can reconcile some points as relates to the things that have been raised thus far. With that being stated, I'll turn it back over to Co-Chair Blair as we get ready into the analyzation session of tonight's convening.
Thank you, Commissioner Castone. Is our map creator ready? And then we can bring the map up as he prepares to guide us through and tell us what where we are. If we can bring up the original map and then the one that shows the adjustments that have been made, that would be great. We could have both of them ready. This looks like the latest version.
Co-Chair Blair,
Yes.
Yes. Just as a note, one of your tasks, you have a question from Task Force Member Travis Swanson.
Yes, Commissioner Swanson.
Thank you, Commissioner Blair. I just had more of a housekeeping thing. I wanted to flag that. I don't know if everybody saw it, but there was a request in the chat to if we could turn on the closed captioning. I think that's more of a question for Ms. Bunn or Mayor Gray's staff, but I wanted to make sure that we saw that and we turn it on if we can, so hearing impaired
Yes.
people can participate.
I saw that and I'm trying to figure out how to do that while we are in progress right now.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. Map creator, Keith Hassan Towery.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I did want to note that I know that it looks slightly different. The difference with this map and the one that we presented the other day is that there are just red dots to indicate the areas in which there was, issues with the system. There was a lot of question raised about that, and we just wanted to make sure that that was properly articulated. But this is the exact same map. And also, we saw in the article that we were not quoted correctly or not responded correctly. There was a mistake where it said 7D02 versus 7A01, and we also made that label change so that it properly reflects that it's an equal amount of SMD commissioners on both east and west side of the river.
Okay, I will just ask that the red dots, it looks slightly different from what we saw previously. Would you rather just explain the red dots first since they stick out so much?
Sure. So during my presentation on Monday, what we covered and what we talked about was that there were definitely some issues that not only the task force discovered, but the Office of Planning also understands are issues, particularly how we have to talk about splitting some census blocks, although it is not encouraged, knowing that it has to happen in some instances. So the red dots were originally introduced on that map last time to show what those areas were. After some conversations and reading those articles where we saw that there was also further confusion, we decided to make sure we put a red dot everywhere in which those things would take place. For example, when you look at the 7B01 area that says 1881, and we zoom in a little bit, you are going to see that there's two dots here, right? Originally, this only had one dot, but we made sure we put two dots here so it's clear that we are going to be asking the Offices of Planning to cut the census block here to be continuous across the street of Greenway or B Street. So that's why there's two dots versus one. Another example, instead of putting a dot here, we just made sure that this is clear that it says error, right? We know that there's like nothing here built on this plot. It's just zero, and we know that's a issue that OP is also aware of. Same thing with this dot in this corner here, as it was mentioned about the school, ATON. Where the other dots at? This particular dot here, we mentioned about a cut request that we're asking to try to keep in the framework of neighborhoods. There's also a line there too, so you can see that. Make sure that's clear, that that's a request. Where are the other dots at? I think those are all the dots. Did that answer your question, Chair Blair?
Yes, the red dots were just so obvious. We would like to start with those so the public would be able to clear those out of their mind as we continue to discuss this map. One thing that I don't think maybe some people didn't notice when we last met on Monday is this map more or less, I don't want to say eliminate, but 7D is no longer represented on the map. Would you care to expound on that?
Yeah, sure. And if there's anybody else that would like to from the task force talk about it a little bit, by all means. As we continue to always talk about having unity between east of the river and west of the river, we thought that in order to enter into this new prosperous and trusting relationship, that we should go ahead and rename what was traditionally a 7D commission into 7A, right? To signify a new growth, a rebirth, a chance for these varied communities to create a whole new relationship. So the theory or the push behind calling it 7A versus 7D comes from that.
It looks like some portions of what was or what is currently 7D to the, I guess that's Minnesota Avenue, to the right is now 7C. So has some of 7D been annexed into 7C? Help me understand that. Help our audience understand that.
Sure, correct. So in trying to make sure we can foster this unity, conversation amongst some of the neighborhoods, such as Deanwood, which is what you're seeing as the majority of 7C, was able to work with the commission areas and the commissioners of what we are currently called 7D, right? To switch land a little bit and to also just clean it up so it can make clear lines as into you have A on this side, you have B down here, you have F in the center, you have C to the upper right left, and you have E towards the bottom end. So this was just an attempt to ensure that take place. And I do see that Mr. Deskins has raised his hand. Could I yield some time to him for him to also talk about that?
Sure.
Thanks, Keith and Chair Blair. I just thought maybe I should weigh in a little bit on behalf of the task force members from 7C. So part of the reason that happened is, if you remember the first meeting, there was a lot of folks from the Deanwood community that asked that the line at 295 move that commission back, because there was originally a 7B commission that had like a slither along that other side, and they were talking about there were a variety of reasons that they discussed, and so accommodating that, and then also the fact that there were 8 commissions in 7A, then that is why it made sense to organize it the way we did. Okay, that's all I had.
My next question is in reference to Deanwood. Part of what we heard early on was the request or the desire for Deanwood to be all contained in one ANC. Anyone, Mr. Towery or Mr. Deskins, would you expound on that?
I'm sorry, were you asking if Deanwood was in one ANC?
Yeah, how did Deanwood things shake out for Deanwood?
Sure. Keith, did you want to do that? Because this is not my map, so I can't really move it around.
I think that you could speak to
Okay.
how Deanwood is reflective in the whole of 7C.
Yep, I can do that. So if you look at the there is a line coming right down here that this line that comes down to 7C01. Can you slide your mouse right across that? That's Nanny Helen Burroughs. Nanny Helen Burroughs is the border of the Deanwood community. And then it goes up Division Avenue, which is the border of the Deanwood community this other way. And so as you can see, all of Deanwood is inside the single commission of 7C now, making sure to accommodate that request, which was pretty easy because part of Deanwood was already in there. And so it was just a matter of moving things around a little bit, taking into account some population changes. I do mark to that part that says era for 1019. I don't have a screenshot right now, but you can see on the map that actually like the majority of that, I would say probably everything except for maybe 20 people is an empty lot. And so that's just an empty lot that the census put a block of 1,000 right there. So we marked that out as era and took that out because obviously it would mess the population numbers up a whole lot. So that was all I had for that.
Okay. Mr. Towery, the map creator, if you pull out so we could see the map altogether, there's several SMDs that appear to be below the 1900 minimum. There's going to be an explanation required for that. Is there a general explanation that suits all of those situations, or is each one unique and in its own, has its own reason for being below 1900?
Sure. And I think, and I definitely would like to invite any particular representative from the commission areas that are drawn here on this map to speak to this, but I'll give it the first stab. There's definitely some in which we understand that OP, Office of Planning, and the council will allow exceptions when there are particular communities per se, right? As you can see right there, where 7A02, for example, is the sum of Parkside. Parkside is a contained community in which a cut will need to be made in order for the population to fizzle out the way that it needs to. Same example too, when we talk about trying to have an entire SMD that is dedicated and solely for DC jail, right? A cut would have to be made there too as well to properly reflect that. Same thing with some of the areas that we're seeing below down in what we're proposing to be 7B. In these particular situations, we also know that the law, although it's saying that it's varying from 1900 to 2100, we did find that there is legal justification for the parameters to also be around 1800 to 2200. So there are situations where there are exceptions. There's also legal aid to allow for a variation from 1800 to 2200. And we definitely can talk about anyone in particular if you have a question about a particular single member district.
Well, there's just multiples on the map. So I'm just saying that for everyone that appears on the map, there will definitely be a requirement to explain it in the final report. And so if anyone has any questions within the task force, or maybe someone has questions in the chat, they might want an explanation in detail. I don't want to go through every single one of them, but they will require an explanation.
And I assure you that we definitely have that. And we also have the correct citation to show why the deviation should be accepted.
And of course, I'm going to ask about all of these boundaries. So that some of them have changed. And so the map we have with the civic associations outlined, is there any that would be split in your mapping, split civic association boundaries between ANCs?
No, we've done a great job of ensuring that amongst a commission area, as is designated by the first two letters, whether it's 7A or 7B, 7E or 7F, that we took those communities that we've publicly presented about their civic association boundaries into much consideration. It was brought to our attention, for example, however, that for DuPont wasn't taken into consideration. So I do want to put that out there so that it's not, we're not trying to mislead, and we're trying to say, that was definitely something that we should have went back to the drawing board to make sure that we properly captured the areas. But we have definitely ensured to account for those particular areas. But that's why we have certain cuts that are presented on this map a certain way in order to ensure that neighborhoods can remain together.
Okay. I wanted to take some time and look at 7E. It came to the task force attention through an email that the population in general of 7E was significantly lower than the other commissions. How has that been resolved? Is there something that was added from 7C to 7E or 7B into 7E? How is that resolved?
And I definitely want to yield time to Ms. Bowen. I believe I just saw her hand raised.
Yeah, I know in part of this exercise, I think it's been said multiple times that we took into account what we heard during the listening sessions. And it was, I think even on Monday's listening session, it was very clear that there was people that initially resided in 7E that asked to go in other parts. And so that was stated multiple times there, but also just in terms of the guidance that we were given, thinking about neighborhoods and civic associations and the contiguous piece, and recognizing that ANC service came up a lot. That was some of the thinking there. But I also know that there was exercise done in terms of looking at the numbers of ANCs, not the numbers of ANCs, but the number of people. And so when we looked across it, it looks pretty balanced in terms of 7F having like 17,000 to 7C having 19,000. So when you look across all the SMDs and the number of people, it seemed pretty balanced in terms of the population and the opportunity for that population to grow.
And Commissioner Blair, also Mr. Deskins would like to weigh in.
Sure.
I just wanted to note, because I know that like some folks may not have been on the earlier meetings. If you remember, probably maybe the fourth meeting, I asked, like, would it make sense for us to vote on whether we're going to do 7, 9, or 11 commissions? And I remember, I think it might have been you, Chair Blair, and some other folks too, that agreed that it made the most sense to not get ourselves stuck down to a hard number like that, because it would stifle us from being able to look at the other factors that were also important in deciding. And so I think I heard that concern, and from my perspective, at least, what we tried to do was to align the communities so that the communities would be able to engage, and at least on the 7C side, that's what we were looking to do. And so I guess that's all I could say about that. But I think that was my, that was one thing that I wanted to bring up, because I remember that was brought up. And of course, if you wanted absolute parity in numbers, then you needed to have every commission be the exact same size. And that was something that we decided not to do.
No, that I was just looking to provide an answer for the inquiry came from 7E, and they wanted an explanation or wanted to have their numbers be on par. So it's not something that I specifically wanted in terms of, it wasn't my question. I was really asking on behalf of 7E. And yes, our commissions have a various number of S&Ds within them. That's understandable. At the point where it was suggested that we vote on a specific number, yes, that would kind of stymie and impede our ability to put together a map. And then also at that point, public had already submitted maps, so it would pretty much knock out their maps from being a valid consideration.
And Chair Blair, I do want to say, as being the representative from 7E on the task force, we've definitely had conversations with the commissioners of the 7E. And the one thing that I always love to do is just to be very clear and intentional with how we use and we group different words. Yes, there have been a few commissioners within 7E that wanted or they expressed the population argument. However, that was not the whole of the 7E commission. So I think it will just fare us better to make sure that we are clear that there was 1 or 2 commissioners that expressed that particular argument, but that was not the whole of ANC 7E. Also, you have Nisha who has her hands up as well. Ms. Petruni.
Ms. Petruni from 7E.
Hi, thanks, Keith. Just to add to what Mandel was saying, and Keith, what you were just speaking to, maybe it would be helpful to talk about what some of the possible alternatives would have been and why those would have, maybe a different impact. If we tried to think about adding another district to 7E, I think this month on Monday's listening session, but taking a part of 7C would mean splitting the Capitol View neighborhood, which I think this map is trying to avoid. Then if we look on the other adjacent section of 7E, what would be the costs of bringing in 7B09 into 7E, and maybe just some of the thought process, if you're able to explain that, around, alternatives that were considered, but why it seemed like the current map was doing the best job that we could to maintain neighborhoods or civic associations and compact and contiguous districts along the 7E section, if that would be helpful. Oh, I apologize. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
okay.
We can hear you. It's a bit distorted, but we can hear you. Thank you for that input. I want to yield time to my co-chair, Commissioner Joel Castone. I yield the floor to you.
Thanks, co-chair. Mr. Towery, the first question I want to ask you spoke about it earlier, and that was in reference to if you could zoom in for us, please, Tamika, the 7F07, the red dot there. And you spoke about how the census block, as well as much conversation was already given about making DC jail a SMD, its own SMD. Can you speak about how this map achieved that goal, if you will?
Sure. And, it's just really difficult with the current tools that we have, as we know that the Office of Planning will have to come in to do some additional cleanup to make these things a little cleaner and to make more sense. But, it has been the intention to ensure that the men and the women in DC Central Treatment, DC Jail, will be able to have their own SMD. I think that as a community, there's just been this historic precedent where we wanted to ensure that the voices of the men and women behind the walls has a voice, and they know that they're also a part of the democratic process. Particularly, we want to ensure that as people are returning back to society, that they can get themselves ready and prepared, right? Reentry starts day one. What better way to ensure that the men and women that are behind the walls are going to be able to have some successful reentry, if we disenfranchise them or we minimize their voices and their votes. They still have voices and votes despite of their location their current disposition at the time. So that was our rationale and our intention regarding ensuring that there can be a separate SMD that is linked to a commission that spans both east and west of the river to ensure that those men and women has a voice while they're behind the walls.
Mm-hmm. So this map here, what is just kind of like cutting to the mustard here, does it, once the census block is split, what happens? 7F07, what happens there? We have another SMD for DC jail. Give me give us all that visual of how that looks relates to the map that we had before.
Sure, right. So this is an Office of Planning question, and so we can determine what the actual population will be when the split occurs. And that will also help dictate exactly how we could redistribute and reallocate for the SMD that we are proposing to have on this side. I wish I could give you more, but this is a number in the cut that has to take place. But the intent and the goal is to ensure that that can happen, and we can also ensure that there is, based off of the maps that we've seen from folks west of the river, we're also trying to make sure that we're aligned with how they are identify their neighborhoods and how they would like for things to be displayed.
Thank you. I'm unaware of who hand went up first, whether it was Task Force Member Campbell or Alcorn.
I'll defer to Brian first.
Okay, thank you. Is that Mr. Campbell's voice?
Yes, it is.
Okay, yes, sir, Ms. Campbell.
Oh, if that was for me to go first, I would just say to Mr. Santauri and the map makers. We certainly appreciate that the idea to split 7F07, or rather Reservation 13, into a DC jail specific seat, and then one that accommodates residents who are not incarcerated or within the DC jail, as it was presented on March 3rd by Mr. Francis Campbell, has been incorporated into this map. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, did you still have a, yes, sir, Ms. Campbell?
Yes. The numbers that we're looking at here, the 3558, in the previous information I have, the jail, DC jail population was 2386. So if I were to take that from the numbers that you have here for that proposed area, you would be creating another SMD, which is roughly 1,172 people. And you speak about contiguous and continuous neighborhoods, and I'm sure you and that the task force members have received numerous comments about making sure that the Hill East neighborhood is a contiguous and continuous neighborhood. So the map doesn't speak to that particular instance, but again, talking about the Reservation 13 and the 7F07 number, you again, by default, if that 2386 number is true for the jail and the other facilities that are in that area, then what do you do with that 1,172 people who will be well under the minimum of 1,900 in this area? That would be the adjacent area. And again, you can't take into account any further build out because we have to use the 2020 census data.
Mm-hmm.
And, Commissioner Campbell, as I stated, we ensured that we looked at the maps that have been presented by map presenters west of the river. So it's almost like following that question back, what was your plan in order to make sure that those numbers and those populations could fit? We definitely have suggestions, right? And I'm glad that we're in this point where we are having an open dialogue and trying to figure out exactly how to make these communities and these commission areas work. But I would much rather hear from you what your idea will be in order to make sure that those numbers can properly account for residents west of the river.
Well, I think in my previous submissions that I did account for that with the 7 SMDs of the west of the river in the proposal that I put forth before, which has been roundly voted down, I assume. But again, in my submission, I did create 7 SMDs west of the river and an ANC west of the river that was contiguous with the community that is now part of Ward 7. And it included a separate SMD for the jail facility, as well as the additional neighborhoods. So I don't think it's fair that you said that I haven't done that, when actually I have submitted that map, not only for this committee to look at, but for the public to view also.
And I guess I just want to make sure my words are clear and that my intent is clear. I don't think that I said that you did not do that. The question is more of how can we do this? What makes sense in order to accommodate this map that passed by the majority of the task force, saying that we should have a commission area that is both east and west of the river? How can we divide the numbers up so this could work? And we would really love to be collaborative to understand how we can make these numbers work with your communities and respecting the boundaries that you guys have set for your communities west of the river.
Well, to that point also, I thought that what we had originally intended as for these discussion sessions, that these discussion sessions were not to put forth these discussions were supposed to be just that, a discussion session. And from these, because they were not duly noticed to the community, that they would be discussion sessions, and that when we had a duly noticed meeting notice, that then it would be one that we would put forth a map that would be voted on by the committee or by this task force. So again, that goes to the point that when we had this meeting on the 14th, this was supposed to be a discussion session and not one that was going to vote on specific maps. If I'm wrong, I stand corrected.
Well, and so I think what I'm asking is to have that discussion with you and the fellow commissioners and great people that are west of the river. what makes sense. It'll be great to hear from you how we can divide that up to fit what the overall framework has been for this map that did pass, which is why this is the discussion map.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, but again, the objection for myself and a number of my community is that the map that I suggested fits all the tenets of redistricting, and that it keeps neighborhoods cold and contiguous. It also meets the population requirements, and it again speaks to all of that. So I mean, I won't belabor the point, but if you're asking if I'm going to support this map, I can most definitively say no.
And and that's fine. We just really want to continue to announce and let everybody know, and this is about unity. And we continue to try to work across so we can make these adjustments make sense for everyone. But it's really difficult to do that when folks don't want to come to the table to try to help us understand and make this work. We definitely took the time to look at the maps that were submitted to make sure that we were mirroring and getting the spirit of what the maps of west of the river were presenting. And I do hope that your position on working with us so we can make this all make sense will evolve, so we can be able to have some areas that we all can be proud of at the end of the day when we have to submit this report by April 1st to the council.
Gentlemen, let me jump in here, gentlemen. Thank you. Let me jump in here now. Richard Staines, if I heard Mr. Campbell correctly, Keith, what Mr. Campbell was saying was that the map that he submitted specifically as it relates to this portion of the map and extended to the west of the river, which will be my follow-up question. It captured his thought base. He spoke about how, once we split and make DC jail or SMD, the remaining residents there, how that can be continuous, compact and continuous. So if I'm understanding correctly, he's saying that, and if I'm understanding you correctly, you are saying that, okay, I hear that, let me incorporate that, and this is what I'm hoping that we are able to do to reach a happy medium. Having stated that, Keith, I want to also move towards some of the comments and the concerns for particularly next to my question would be what we have labeled here as 7A, or in the same vein, the west of the river. Can
I ask a question?
Speak, yes to me, quick.
To the point that was just discussed here, if this is a discussion map, should we be spending time asking questions that improve this map?
Yes.
So like to the point with Mr. Campbell, like if and I'm not putting words in your mouth, Mr. Campbell, but like, if there is no support in terms of how we improve this map, then to yield to the other thing I want to just raise is like, there's other principles that we have to identify than compact and contiguous. So if there's no resolution or ideas that how we split this or make this agenda address some issues with Mr. Campbell, then where do we go? We just keep having this conversation and just move past, move to another part of the ward, or we just I'm feeling like we're on this circular motion here in terms of Mr. Campbell had some ideas here that I was really vibing with, and I want to figure out how we can address that in this map. Recognizing that he does not support this map, but this is the map of discussion. So how do we take what he's saying to then, address these things, or to attempt to address these things, recognizing that it won't be perfect, but we can hear him and place some of the things that he has in his previous map here. Because I feel like we're moving to another part, but we're not addressing what is going on here.
All right, if I can be clear, and I won't take but a minute, what I'm suggesting is I know this area west of the river because of my tenure as former commissioner, because I walk this neighborhood and I know that neighborhood. I don't suppose to know anything east of the river because I don't know the areas. And so what I'm saying simply is, in all the prior comments, it has been that commissioners and panelists would be best suited to demarcate and divide and put in the areas that they're most familiar with and suggest how that should be divided or sectioned out, however, whatever term you want to use, but because they are best suited for that area. So I have no objections to the rest of the map. What I'm failing to see and what a lot of my former constituents are failing to see is how do you serve an area west of the river when it is a large contiguous landmass of sufficient population to create those 7 SMDs and carve the jail out as its own single member district and meets all the tenets of redistricting. Simply that. I mean, again, I don't propose to do anything across the river because I'm not familiar with it, nor do I know what the various associations, neighborhoods, et cetera, are.
Thank you for sharing that. And great. I think you hit the nail on the head too, Tamika, as you stated earlier. And what we're doing tonight in this session here is how we can improve upon this map. And so, again, hearing you correctly, Keith, and that those are the points that we want to get and solicit so we can build upon what we have. My question is still want to speak about 7A, Keith. Can you share a little bit about, I think I looked the map at this, 5 SMDs and 7A here?
So for 7A, we are proposing 8. We are proposing to have 4 that are east of the river, and we're proposing to have 4 that are west of the river. And we've also ensured that it's literally alongside the river, right? You can see here, we still have our waterways, and it's literally focused on being, a commission that can unite around river issues, a commission that can unite around traffic issues, a commission that will be able to not have either side feel as if they don't have enough representation to be able to articulate the concerns that all of their communities is having. It's literally a commission of unity.
And another thing we covered last time, Keith, I see for a second, Mr. Alcorn, was about, matter of fact, let me recognize Mr. Alcorn because this goes in a different direction. Mr. Alcorn, you have a comment about 7A?
Sure. Thank you, Co-Chair Castone. I was actually coming in on the tail end of comments around 7F, if that's still open.
Sure.
Sure. So just scrolling back down to 7F, the proposal, as I see it, is Mr. Santauri, that's 8 SMDs, is that correct?
Correct. We are proposing 8 SMDs in 7A.
F as in Frank.
For 7F, we are proposing the same amount, 8.
Got you. So the conversation that you were having with Mr. Campbell earlier, where 7F, but the intention is to divide 7F07 too, right? So is that 9 seats or is that 8 seats?
Well, so that's what we would like to work collaboratively to figure out how to make work. It could be 9, it could be 8. We don't know until we are able to properly divide those numbers out once we say that we want to move forward with this map officially.
Got it. Okay. But on that principle then, west of the river right now under this map amounts to 5,466 residents. East of the river for 7F amounts to 11,806 residents. That's, nearly double. So what is the proposition of unity on such an unbalanced population and an unbalanced number of seats on both sides for 7F?
Well, and Commissioner Alcorn, like we've been saying from day one, the proposition for unity is for us to sit down and figure this out together. And we really just want to ensure that we can do that holistically together. In the previous conversation with Commissioner Campbell, we're asking for suggestions, we're asking for recommendations, but we're not being provided any. So in the spirit of unity, we really want to ensure that we are taking all of those concerns that you have regarding what you're labeling imbalance of population to figure out what solution will best address this particular parcel of land to get to the correct numbers that will be approved for SMDs.
Sure. No, I certainly appreciate that this is, a dialogue among like-minded Ward 7 residents. That's certainly the purpose of this exercise, and that's been the spirit in which this has been approached. I would just say that, for those who are commenting on the map, and as you and other citizens are the map makers, we appreciate sort of the offer of consideration, but just at this point, as this map is continuing to be a matter of first impression for some, we raise that issue and appreciate the opportunity to provide input, understanding that those answers may not be present at this point.
And, again, I think that because we haven't had the chance to have a full dialogue, or maybe even the willingness to have a full dialogue at some points, our ventures, I wouldn't say that the answers aren't here yet. I just think that, we were hoping that today would be the day we can come together and discuss this broadly, and I also don't want to go on a tangent, right? But, I can speak to what's been happening for a lot of us that are on the task force that are east of the river. We are receiving harassing emails nonstop from a commissioner that is making a very aggressive attack, including some of her constituents. And it continues to put us in a place where we are just saying we want to get along, we want to get together, we want unity, but it's obsessive. Despite all of that, we are here today to say that we want to work this out to make sure that we can arrive to a solution that's going to be beneficial for Ward 7 so we can be stronger together. And I just want to thank you, Commissioner Alcon, for that acknowledgement and for your willingness to work with us to make this map work for our beautiful ward of Ward 7.
Thank you, Keith. I want to recognize two task force members, starting with Ashley. I don't know whose name is up first, but Ashley, can you please go?
Ashley.
Yes. Thank you, Co-Chair Calstone, for letting me go ahead and speak. And I thank everyone tonight for letting me speak and allowing me to speak. I have quite a few things to say, and I'm going to make it quick and simple as possible. Number one, I want to kind of piggyback off of Keith. I think that we should all be able to work together. The harassing emails, at one point, they got to stop. They're racially intended, I feel like. And I have no problem saying that. Everyone knows that I will not sugarcoat nothing. I'm a working hard mom, everything. I speak up for the people because that's my right. And I'm pure at heart. And I feel like we should not have to go through these things. This is disrespectful. We are all supposed to be working together. And I'm not going to say any names because I feel like that is unprofessional. But I feel like it is unprofessional to attack people that are trying to bring a community together so that we're able to vote. Power is not diluted. And everyone that has worked on these projects around here, they get their benefit that's due. Now, my issue with everyone is, what is it with 7F and Reservation 13? Like, there is no negotiation on that. And nobody else will say anything, but I will, because I'm speaking as far as for DuPont Civic Association acting president, and soon to be, once I finish this session out, president. And I'm also speaking on behalf of 7F. And I'm speaking on behalf of 7F01. It seems like we're trying to be phased out in here, and everyone has a problem with this area. And it's like, for what? We put in our dibs, we put in our time. We dealt with the crime, we dealt with the carjackings. We have dealt with everything around here. And now when life is getting good, we're supposed to accept what's on the table. We're supposed to get what's snatched. It's not going to go down like that. And like I said, I am speaking for all three counterpoints. I am not speaking as a panelist tonight. So I am asking, what is the purpose of us in these emails and these harassing emails that we keep bringing up the point about Reservation 13 and also 7F? Can we be frank and not be beating around the bush? Because I'm not doing no sugary acts tonight. And I thank you all for letting me speak my point.
Thank you for sharing. Before I call for the next task force member, I just want to make our objective this evening is to make sure that we figure out ways that we can improve upon this map. And with that being stated, I think it calls for us all to have just a laser sharp vision and focus on the task before us, which is very difficult because we're trying to balance a lot of strong opinions and feelings about something that's going to affect us all. Nonetheless, we have this task before us. So taking full advantage of the time that we have. And I see a number of comments in the chat, and I want to say this evening, we definitely want to recognize the comments that are in the chat and hear from the public. So the public, keep it coming. Once I conclude here and hear from the task force member, the attention will be directed towards the questions that's being raised in the public, that the creator of this map and those contributors can be able to hear and be able to say, hey, this is how we can take this back to the drawing board and improve upon this map that the majority task force member have already accepted. So this is the map that we're looking at. This is the map that we're working with, and we're looking for ways, I heard, to create the map, ways to improve upon it that no voice is left behind. Having stated that, Nisa, I don't remember your volume. Nisa, your volume when you speak sometimes it be distorted. Just
Commissioner,
yes.
Commissioner, we need to promote Marla Dean to a panelist level.
Marla's promoted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to give you the speaking order. It's actually Max and then Nisha and then Mr. Francis and Brian.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tamika. Come on, Mr. Max.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Max Richmond. I am a Ward 7 resident in the Deanwood area representing 7C in tonight's session. I wanted to just level set a couple of things. I know we're looking at the new map here. We have a lot of new residents who aren't familiar with how Ward 7 has been set up. So 7F has already been a cross river ANC for the last 10 years. And so keeping it a cross river ANC is also one of the fundamental principles of making fewer changes. So I just want to make sure we're all very clear that purple square there that says 7F07, that's not changed. That's what it's been for the last 10 years. We can decide to change it, but I just want to make sure it's clear for folks who might not live and breathe these maps that that is the case. Point two that I wanted to make is that Ward 8 also has extended further into Ward 6 as Ward 7 has done. And I know that map isn't final yet and they're still working on it, but I believe the plan for Ward 8 is also to have a cross river ANC for that area. And then finally, as somebody who lives east of the river, I completely understand the concerns that west of the river residents are raising about the risks of accessibility across these areas. I know 7F already has this in being able to cross the difficult East Capitol Street to be able to get from 7F06 to 7F07. I think what we're trying to say is this is an actual challenge we work on every day, not a hypothetical future thing. And we really want to work on this together. And so with that, I yield my time and appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Who was next in the lineup, Tamika?
Nisha.
Nisha, okay, thank you.
Hi, and apologies if my audio isn't good, but I just wanted to highlight a suggestion I put in the chat for potential discussion, but would it be an option to adjust 7A08 and move it into 7S? Does that address some of the concerns around 7S08 being isolated? And also, does that help balance some of the numbers of the commissions that we were also talking about? So if there's room or space to discuss that as a possible edit or update to this map, I just wanted to raise that for awareness.
Moving 7A08 would cause a break in the civic association boundaries. The civic association spans 7A08, 7A06, 5. So all of those are within the same civic association. And that's something we said we were going to try not to do, is split the boundaries for civic associations.
Okay, that's fair. I just wanted to highlight, like, I think, us also discussing what our priorities are or how we are trying to consider all of the different principles, including, maintaining those communities of interest in the civic association, also considering the equal representation and the minority voting power. I just wanted to reemphasize that, this map and the map makers and our task force are trying to take into account all of that, which is why there are still opportunities to try to improve where we can. But as Co-Chair Blair just pointed out, sometimes, maybe we can't actually make those adjustments without sacrificing a different principle.
Thank you. Was it Mr. Campbell next? Or was it Alcon?
Yes, it was Mr. Campbell, then Mr. Alcon.
Okay, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Chair Blair and Castone. Again, I'm trying to understand. Well, I can't speak to the emails that people are complaining about that appear to be racist or however they want to call it, because I've seen a number of those emails, and as a Black man, I don't see the same thing, right? But I respectfully will acknowledge that if people feel that way, then I'm not going to debate that. And I also want people to understand too that Reservation 13 was part of my former SMD at its onset, and that we were a great work in setting down the boundaries, the zoning, the future work out of the master plan for this area. And so again, to that point, it will forever and every day impact those of us who live directly across the street. All right, it will not impact anyone on the other side of the river. And again, because knowing how the master plan is laid out and where the street divides are, it will again, even beyond my time, impact this one block of Burke Street that has always been a hidden gem so often. But again, those are all things that have nothing to do with what it is that we're attempting to talk about tonight. What we're talking about is, again, the tenets of the redistricting, which is contiguous, continuous neighborhoods. And this map does anything but promote that, because it divides things, it divides neighborhoods that are contiguous by landmass and by concerns, by transportation issues, by all the issues that small mundane things that an ANC covers. And so that's not going to change. And dividing these things down the middle is going to make it more difficult for us to try to come to agreements on some of those issues that impact us each and every day. And I'm willing to talk to anyone about this. And to Commissioner Towery's comment, I have been reaching out to people and attempting to talk to try to come to some comedy and agreement. So I take objection to your comment that I haven't. And that's all I have to say right now.
Chair Castone, am I able to just reply in kind?
Please do so.
Okay. Again, when we're talking about this map, I think that sometimes we like to throw out words like compact and contiguous because we like to, weaponize education. We like to put ourselves in positions where we can't properly articulate what the real issue is. So we hide behind these concepts that we have continued to make sure that this map passed. When I presented this map on Monday with the checklist that we've all created as a task force, I went through each of the columns to talk about how all of these things fit. I think that it will be helpful as we're having the discussion to stop saying that things aren't compact and contiguous, particularly between what we are proposing for 7A and 7F right here. At one point, west of the river, that was 6A and that was 6B. That was a divided community. What we're trying to say is that we believe that based off of the previous setup that was there west of the river of having a 6A and 6B, that we are also respecting that clearly those were identified as separate neighborhoods at some point. I don't think that we are doing anything different. And when we're asking to work together to figure out how we can make a cross-river ANC work, instead of getting suggestions, we're being lectured. And I just wanted to ensure that I make that statement and to clarify that position.
Thank you for making that statement. I want to ask, this is what I would like for you to do, Keith. This report kind of like be more of a push, if you will, a soft push. And the soft pushes be, I'm asking you to put your filter on. Any comment you hear from thus forward, filter the comment and how I can gather something from that and improve. Because I think that the point of the matter is that collectively as task force members, the map was already voted upon. So we know that this is the map that we have already chosen to be one that we want to move forward. So I want to just push you a little bit and say, Keith, put on that hat. Put that hat on right there. That everything I hear, I'm gonna filter it through the lens of saying, how can I prove? How can I take that? It might be 100%, what's that 2%, or that 1% that I can take and improve upon? Because I know you have the capability of doing so, and everything thus far has been that way. And with that being stated, there was a number of hands from task force member, and there were some questions in the chat we want to get to, but I definitely want to recognize the task force member. And here's the challenge for us all, task force member. We all have, with the exception of harassment, which is unacceptable on all sides of the fence. That's unacceptable. I mean, we can't get past that. You know, it's like saying a bomb went off. You can't ignore that. So you got to check it, whether it's true or not, right? And I'm inclined to say it's true because no one has a reason to lie about something like that. But we have to take that as sensitive. That's unacceptable in any of our dealings. But moving forward, for all task force members, I want us all to think about, we're here to try to figure out how can we land this plane. And so with that being stated, I want to make sure that we can kind of stay right there and land that plane. There's some concerns that was raised. And if we can just kind of like not see the concerns as personal attacks, with the exception of the actual personal attacks, but seeing as ways that we can improve upon what we had before us. With that being stated, I think Mr. Alcorn, am I correct, Tamika? Is it Mr. Alcorn, Melissa? I know Ashley back. I know Madeline. I don't know the order.
Oh, Mr. Alcorn, this will be your second time speaking, correct?
No, probably third.
Okay. So I just want to notice patterns of participation. So I think we should let Melissa speak and then go back in the order of Mr. Alcorn, followed by Ashley, and then Mandalay.
Great point. Hello, Melissa.
Well, good evening, everybody. Just very quickly, and we're kind of quibbling over some things. When Mr. Campbell made his map was 14,842 people. That's not how many people are over there. And even the Hill Rag, in all their trashiness, said that there are only 13,000 people over there. So somewhere along the line, even in Mr. Campbell's 7 SMDs, there were not 7 complete SMDs. So I'm doing the math right now, and the math is not mathing that there are somewhere along the line of 2,000 or some odd people there. There are people missing. So from the 7 SMDs that came out from Mr. Campbell's map, there aren't 7 SMDs or 7 complete SMDs, which is, I think, the thing Mr. Campbell and Alice and a couple of other people have brought up, that there's, what is it, 1,200 or however many people, or 1,400 people left over. So, I mean, and I'm just doing simple math calculation, whatever, if someone can tell me that I'm wrong or whatever, but when I go back to Mr. Campbell's map, he's got 14,000 people. There's not 14,000 people there, and this is according to the mapping tool. So, like I said, either we're going to go over the river, or we're not going to even have 7. Even if it was a standalone, it wouldn't have been able to be 7 SMD standalone. I'm not sure where we're going with that, because even I think in Bob Coomber's map, I don't think it was exactly as Mr. Campbell's was, and like I said, it doesn't seem to be mapping. So let me know if I'm not mapping right, but it just appears that there's not 14,000 people over there, or even a good 13 where we can have 1,900 people in each one of the SMDs. That's it.
Thank you, Melissa.
It's Mr. Alcorn.
Thanks. So just a couple of thoughts in this go round. So for Mr. Santauri, again, we appreciate sort of your efforts. Your map has the momentum. We appreciate that. And I think that there's, good sort of a good takeaway there, as Mr. Castone has counseled you. I would caution, though, that, you do have a number of fact witnesses here with lived experience. You have myself and Mr. Campbell, who are residents of 6A and 6B and have been present for a very long time. So I apologize if some of the information that we have chosen to share with task force members comes across as lecturing. That is not intended, but it is intended to share the lived experience of the 6A and 6B communities. And I would say that 6A and 6B, sure, there were two ANCs. 6B was substantially large and stretched west. 6A was a little bit smaller and also stretched west. They were divided, but they were not divided for any practical reason. And as I hope Mr. Campbell and I have been able to share in these various meetings, there is absolutely a reason and regular established fact that his community and my community, for lack of a better term, regularly work together because we have transportation issues, crime issues, a number of issues that unite us uniquely on the eastern end of Capitol Hill, which is part of the Capitol Hill element that the Office of Planning sets aside as a neighborhood, and which Ward 7, owns roughly 40% of the territory. So there is an absolute block there that logically fits together. Now, to Mr. Richmond, I would ask you, in terms of, Mr. Richmond, in terms of the question of where meetings would happen, I would hope that we would not draw a map to exacerbate this problem. And I would say that on the western side of the river, the territory speaks very well to providing a good central point for those residents to be able to meet and not face the undoubtedly arduous and difficult challenges that our neighbors east of the river face in terms of having their meetings. And then last, and I think this is an important point, there seems to be a lot of mystique around Reservation 13 and 7F. And setting the jail aside, I think that we both agree, everybody agrees, that there is good reason to give a regular and dedicated voice to those of our citizens who are in the DC jail. So setting that aside, there are developmental opportunities on Reservation 13. And those opportunities are the source of a lot of speculation here. I've heard some of my task force members say that there's a stream of benefits that may come from that. And I've not necessarily been able to understand what that means. Does that mean that there is empowerment by having, a certain person or a certain ANC conducting the negotiations with the city? Does it mean that there is, an actual thing that may come from the development west of the river of Reservation 13 that can be placed in other parts of our ward that need resources? I've sort of struggled to understand what that means because, and as I've explained to folks, at least in my impression, when I've had one-on-one opportunities, the bread and butter of ANC work west of the river has been focused on pretty technocratic things. Crime, fixing traffic issues, dealing with planning and zoning issues. And I've gotten a distinction that perhaps east of the river, the focus oftentimes is rooted in economic development and that ANCs play a role in that. That is something that is much less active and understood west of the river because we represent a built-out environment. We don't have anywhere, we have relatively few open parcels to build on, although Reservation 13 is programmed there. So that is an interesting sort of point that's been one that I don't think has been surfaced and I think merits additional discussion. And Reservation 13 presently and for the last 10 years absolutely has been under the purview of 7F. And the 7F07 commissioner has, not been able to serve in that role until the last 2 years, and that was a tragedy. But that area has been managed by 7F. But 11 years ago, you look at the
Mr. Alcorn, excuse me, if I may, Mr. Alcorn, sorry for interjecting here, right? I just want to make sure that we stick particularly on the map before us. right?
Sure.
You
Mr.
gave a lot of good, rich dialogue and commentary about some good points that could be raised at another time. But however, right now, we're going to lose the opportunity to talk about how we can improve upon this map.
Sure.
So for that reason, I'm going to stop you right there, and I'm going to move on to another task force member only for that reason. Not that I don't think what you're saying is valid, but I don't want us to go down that rabbit hole tonight. Time is running.
Sure.
So I would respectfully ask you to.
I appreciate that guidance, Mr. Castone, and I would just say, if I could hear some viewpoints about 7F and its connectivity east of the river, I would love to hear that, because that is a key point in this discussion, and that would help us improve that map. So thank you.
Right, absolutely. And to the task force member that we have here, same comment, state, I want to be fair across the board as it relates to that. Let's stick to how we can improve upon what we have, because we got something good right here. This map is kicking. It got 11 strong votes. It got some opposition. All we talking about is how we can improve it. So with that being stated, who's the next task force member that can contribute about that?
Ashley's up next.
So I'm really up next tonight, you guys. I'm very excited tonight. So I'm not going to take up any of your time, because this is going to be my second time speaking on this particular map. So to focus on Mr. Campbell's map, when Mr. Campbell presented his map to us, he did not identify what east of the river was. He even said that he did not know what east of the river had or its potential. So let's move forward to Mr. Alcorn. Mr. Alcorn, you just simply said that what are the benefits of 7F? Well, we already know the streetcar coming through here. It's just what point is it going to stop it, and what point is it going to begin at? So we know that that is an attribute. We also know that when that streetcar comes through here, that guess what? We're going to have all those people that work for DC government, any type of job coming through DC that stays in Maryland, Virginia, and other places, even Pennsylvania and New Jersey, are going to come through here. They're going to ride that line. When you go down on A Street, do you not ride that line, sir? Yes, you do. I do as well with my child. Going back to Reservation 13. Reservation 13 was already designated to us. Again, going back to the crime and everything else. And as your constituent sent to us in the email saying that we are Carjack Alley. Okay, well, we are Dead Alley over here. We are Black Man Alley. Don't have nothing alley. We work for this. And I'm one of these people that have been here 10 years plus, but my grandparents have owned their house. First time owners. Ain't never been owned to nobody else. We already had a chance that you guys want to take the wreck, everything else from us. You can't do that. You cannot do that, sir. It will not happen. It's not going down. And do you know why? Because again, like I said, the streetcar, we got river terrace. Guess what? We have also the golf course. We have Spingard. We have the schools that are on the side of Spingard, which is 2 rivers. We also have the 7-Eleven, the Exxon. And oh, let's not forget about the small business owners that we have at the flea market every Saturday out here. Me being one of them. Well, I used to be. So we have many attributes over here. And then when we talk about Reservation 13 is not going anywhere. It's going to benefit all of our children of Ward 7. You know why? Because in that budget that you all got the other day, where did the mayor say she was designating that money to? It's going to the rec centers to keep them open 24 hours so y'all not getting carjacked over there off of Independence and 17th and 16th. But while steadily we getting carjacked over here, I see murals every day on babies dying. All of that. Do we not forget about Makaya that died at the ice cream truck with a $10 bill, got shot through her heart? Her father is one of those people that work over here at the rec center that keep my child alive every day. So there is no discussion about that. It is off the table. It is non-negotiable. You keep coming back talking about the same things, and it does not matter. At the end of the day, we are trying to group together. West of the river has this opposition, and I don't know what for. I mean, are we poor little crackheads or something else over here that you all don't want to come over here and commit with us? Because once you make one economical development grow, you make the others grow, and you make yourself grow. It's about economical growth, social growth. We are not trying to do a race war. And I think that this is more based on race. And tell Ms. Krebs, please stop emailing me too, because I'm going to stop responding to her as well. What she's saying is disrespectful, and it shows just what I'm saying every day, that you guys are trying to come down here and snatch this property from us like we are not valuable. like we have not been here for years. I remember when it was giant, where that new government building is. I remember when it was a vegetable market, and I ain't gonna take up too much time, y'all. I remember when it was a charter school. I remember when it was a medical center, that Unity got pushed out and moved down the center for that medical building. I remember when they said that Ward 7 was a dumping ground. So we know how y'all already treat us. And I don't care how nobody take this message, how you see me, whatever. See me, person, whatever. You're not getting it. So stop putting all this stuff out here in this atmosphere when we're supposed to be working together. Now I'm gonna drop my mic. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you very much. Again, task force member, it is 6:26. I want to, and we all have strong views about it, but want to just kind of encourage us and try to figure out how we can improve upon the map we had before us. Thank you for your sharing. Who was next? Tamika?
I don't even understand.
You're up.
Well, we haven't heard from Dr. Doll. I keep saying Dr. Darlin Dean. Your name is Molly. I didn't get it. Darlin to you. I apologize. My tongue is terrible. Dr. Dean, please, can you hear from you? And then we go to Madeline.
So I don't know how to follow behind Ashley. So this is going to be not as powerful as what she just said, but we cannot, I'm going to speak to this constant conversation around 7F not being contiguous. And I'm going to talk about the issues of race and class and how this is factoring into all of these discussions. And we cannot pretend the issues of race and class are not playing out before us, because they are. 7F is contiguous. It goes straight down through East Capitol, across the bridge, and it continues. It is not broken. People keep putting in the chat, why is 7B coming in to into that piece of 7F? And the reason is because we have had tough conversations and about race and class. And I happen to represent a part of the ward that is seen as the most well-resourced. And is 7B01, if it were to go to another ANC, would send a dangerous message about issues of class. It would send a message that 7B01 does not want people of a certain means in our community. And we are unwilling to make that statement. So that's why we're keeping and asking. We did pull back, asking to retain that, because race and class matters. Now, why am I saying this? For my dear new ward people on the west side of the river, you have to grapple with these same issues. This has been hard for everyone. And I've said this over and over again. But you're not going to get to live in a pretend land where race and class is not part of the discussion. In DC, the racial wealth gap is 81-1, whites to black. So you're going to have to grapple with issues of economic development, class, and race in this redistricting. And in 7B, we were just not willing to push out or even perceived to be pushing out those who are not have as much resources out of our commission. So that's why we have a cutout. It is to send a strong message that every person in this ward, regardless of their race and class, matters. And that's why that cutout is there.
Thank you, Dr. Dean. Madeline?
Yeah, I just wanted to take a second. This is, and I appreciate you, Chair Castone, for bringing us back. We're like an hour and a half into this meeting. I think we had some very important things from both Dr. Dean and Task Force member Ashley Ruff. But, you know, what I'm hearing here is similar to what I heard when we were looking at the 6A and 6B areas in our fourth public session, which is in that meeting, what we heard in the chat and from the comments that people that were not task force members were making is this relitigation of coming towards 7, which was meetings that I sat in and heard with a lot of dog whistling, with a lot of really uncomfortable, really unsavory things that folks were saying, in other words that I'm not going to use. And what I wanted to kind of bring us back to is like, you know, we have this map and we're supposed to be tightening it up, not relitigating literal west of the river even becoming part of Ward 7, which I hear over and over again. And, you know, I've had great conversations with Mr. Campbell. I wanted to have a conversation with Mr. Alcorn. I haven't been able to do that because I have spent hours and hours of my time over the last 2 weeks, like a lot of people have, making maps. And so, and working with my community. And so what I would like from you, Chair Castone, and then from everyone else is, can you please kind of just make sure we're on track about exactly what we're doing here? And then everyone else, can we keep the conversation around how do we make this map what we want to see? Because we already have this map. We've already voted on this map. This is the 6th meeting. We've already done this for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Like, I just want us to move to the next stage, please. Mm-hmm. So that's what. So that I will pass it to you, Chair Castone, and then I can know what to do next.
Thank you very much for sharing that, and thank everyone that preceded my sharing now. Going to the chat, as I promised many times before, is Mr. Tyree still present? One of the questions, I want to lift a couple questions, and after we get done with this particular session, I'll turn it back over to the co-chair, and we'll receive our directions as we move forward for our final meeting on the 28th, which will be us finalizing this map, in which we've already agreed upon that we're going to make the improvements as necessary to get it to the finish line for our final vote. There was a lot of discussion, Mr. Keith, about in the chat about 7E that you represent. Can you speak about that in general, why I surfaced to get some of the questions that was raised specifically about this map and how it affects people in 7E?
Sure. Do you want to ask me a particular question?
Yeah, well, you can speak in general. I'm gonna see if I can find that question from Ms. I believe Ms. Barnett asked a lot of questions. I wouldn't even mind if I can unmute her. I know Ebony Island was another person too, but yeah, in general, and then I'll like to call on those two.
Okay, I'm just going to center 7E here. And I guess I'll just start from what we see here on the map. So, you know, when we talked about this collectively as a task force, and we set the parameters to ensure that the things we have on our checklist were being honored and respected, the one thing that we realized and we noticed was that 7E, although a great and mighty and powerful commission area, it split neighborhoods. It split the Capitol View neighborhood. It also split Fort Davis. We've received communications from people that felt that they were victims of what people would like to throw the word around, gerrymandering, the last time around in Fort Davis, and they really wanted to return back to 7B. As it relates to Capitol View, you know, when we set the principles for it, saying that we were going to ensure that we kept neighborhoods together, we realized that it was unfair to take the lower portion of Capitol View from them. They were split across multiple meetings. I think what everybody can talk to and appreciate that are our task force members and people who are in attendance, we meet. Sometimes we meet more than we sleep, right? And the goal to ensure that communities can advocate for themselves wholly and and with one accord was something that we continue to stand by.
Okay, I have one of the questions, but not to cut. This was the one specifically, Keith. This one says, this question stay, I'm still disappointed that this map gives 70 a disproportionate share of the total population, less than 20% for some other commissions. And this is from Delia.
Who's that from?
Delia, I might.
Hassel. That's our,
yeah.
That's Delia Hassel. She's a commissioner within 7E. We hear the population, you know, I think, let me say this. When we fought very hard as a Ward 7 community to expand Ward 7, to welcome with open arms our neighbors west of the river into this new beautiful configuration of 7, you know, the argument there was about population. I'm not going to shy away from that. That was the argument, right? Because when we talk about that number, having a number that will keep us on pace in comparison to the other wards, that was important. That was essential. That's when we talked about equity and equality and all those different arguments you heard come from our collective group here in Ward 7. But when we start thinking about what this means when we're talking about on a commission level, right? You know, I think our task, as much as it is to help define a commission, the center and the heart of this process is about ensuring that there's equal representation within every single member district, right? Single member districts do roll up to create a ANC, but what matters with the enumerated powers of a commission is great weight. Great weight will be accomplished whether you have 30,000 people or you have 100 people within that SMD, or I'm sorry, that commission area. There are precedents throughout the District of Columbia where there are only 2 SMDs that compose a particular commission area. So taking those things into consideration, also taking the fact that the only land that was quote unquote above the threshold was in 7004, right? That means that was the one we needed to address compared to all of the other places within this new 7 that needed to have that redistricting done. Our principles of also ensuring that we weren't going to change the borders and the boundaries too much is something that we also took into consideration. So, you know, this is the 3rd or the 4th time that this question has continued to come up. And, you know, I'm glad that we are speaking about this, and I will continue to be happy to talk about this. But, you know, population isn't the basis for which we should be judging a commission area. We're talking about equal representation within each of the single member districts and the ability for that commission to band together to have great weight. And one more point to that, if you don't mind, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but the beauty of 70, you know, where I'm at, my home, is that the commissioners are great. The commissioners will sit there and work together and come up with solutions and will be laser focused. This also enables the commission to continue to do that. As the conversation has expanded today to talk about inequalities and gentrification and these other issues, 7E will be the commission area that's going to be primed to really address that and encourage smart growth, to regulate smart growth. And I think this is a beautiful gift that we are giving to Ward 7 as well. So we're not continuing displacing Ward 7 residents to have to move to Ward 9 or to move to other places. We're making sure and being their defenders and their champions to ensure that they can stay here within their homes. And I do thank you for that additional time.
Melissa, did you drop your hand?
Yes, I did, because the only thing I noticed, because with Eben and with Delia, with Commissioner Halsey, they both were mentioning about, you know, the numbers and the population. Never has a vote come up where everyone says, everyone living in 7E, raise your hand. Oh my goodness, you only have 14,000 people, so you lose out that way. Again, and Delia keeps saying it's not about great weight, but that's what the power of the ANC is that great weight part, is that it's one ANC, it's 5, 7, 9, 10 SMDs, but when it comes to writing that resolution, it's done by one ANC. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and then I lowered my hand, but I'm good.
Okay. Let's see.
So retail.
I beg your pardon?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading there because Ms. Commissioner Hauser said she lost retail and economic growth opportunities, though she still has them with Fletcher Johnson, which I think is still in her ANC. Is it?
That's correct. In addition to that, the expansion that we have on this map, we actually pick up some additional shopping malls. We have a nice new recreation center as well. We have more retail. I think what she's particularly referring to is maybe the fact that Capitol View has migrated over to 7C. And again, it's about keeping a community together, which we've all said this was something that we subscribe to as a task force. So there is ample retail, there's ample opportunity to use great weight with ABRA to make sure that those stores are doing what they're supposed to do for the community. We just have a lot of great opportunity here, and it is great opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Final question, then I'll turn over back to the co-chair. I'm still combing through some of the comments. It was later on as if some of the question was asked, the concerns was addressed already. Can you speak specifically, Keith? One I have here, and I lost it all the way up here, but it was talking about basically and expressing about Hill East, right? And you spoke about, it was conversations around that earlier. So I just didn't want to lose that thought, because it was a long, lengthy comment that was made. But in essence, it was talking about splitting Hill East. Can you speak about that, how that map does or doesn't do that, or how can that be reconciled if it appears to do so? Did you understand my question, Keith?
Looks like he's froze. Do you want to restate it and see if someone else here can answer?
Yeah, well, anyone, okay, I'm looking for this question here, and it was a lot about, basically, it was, in essence, it was about Hill East. And the question, okay, cool. The person was basically stating that that the map was, it separates or isolate Hill East. And
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
My computer, it cut off all of a sudden. Can you repeat your question again so I can answer that? And I think you were referring to Hill East. And
yeah, exactly. In essence, it was about Hill East. It's all the way up here, but it was basically talking about in the submission individual was basically saying that they felt that the map was basically everything I heard was about 70 or Hill East. Those are the two main comments, right?
Sure. And so
Hill East map, yeah.
So in 70 and Hill East they're two different neighborhoods, right?
Yeah, well,
so
you spoke about the Hill East. I mean 70 now, just transition back to the Hill East.
Okay, and my answers that I provided earlier, they'll still stand. We are here in this session today to have a discussion about how to make this right. I'll reiterate for people who just joined the conversation. What we did was we took the maps that were presented. We made sure that we followed how those areas were divided. We also took in consideration that 6A and 6B were two distinctly different commissions, not even SMDs, hence the CA and 6B. So we are here to have a discussion with folks west of the river to figure out what will work. And we're here to be collaborative, we're here to be united, and we are here to make this work for the greater Ward 7 so we can be stronger together.
Here's the question expressed. This is from Brian Barnett. Yeah, it says, may I ask the task force consider making change to the map, 1, to keep the current 7F ANC's reservation 13 in the jail and the new 7F, and 2, separate the residential portion of Hill East west of 19th Street to be part of the new 7A is the question. Can we read it again? That's me.
Yeah, I'm following it.
Yeah, it says, may I ask the task force consider making change to the map. The first consideration is to keep the current 7F ANCs, that is to say reservation 13 in the jail and the new 7F, and 2, separate the residential portions of Hill East, which is west of 19th Street to be part of a new 7A.
And we're talking about the 7A in which we propose on our map.
Yeah,
meaning that
yeah, I'm assuming
Hey,
so.
I would love to see what that looks like visually. And, I know that I am the author of this particular map, but, as I'm a collaborative person, I would love to also have other people weigh in that is on the call regarding what they just heard as a proposal. And I also would like to know who made that proposal per se, because if it isn't somebody that is on the task force, I think that's a moot point.
Yeah, I mean, we already addressed it. I wanted to read it still. I still wanted, in all fairness, I wanted to read it.
I think I'm trying to follow. They're asking for it to be moved out of 7A to 7F to 7A.
Well, it looked like it's saying they want to keep 7F the way it is and then take a portion of it, making 7A. Yeah, that was a question.
I don't understand it.
Yeah, I didn't really.
Yeah, it seems like keeping the status quo and then
Yeah.
just creating a new west of the river ANC with 7F. So the carve out and then everything else is 7A.
Mm-hmm. This will be my final question, Keith, and I'm gonna give it to Commissioner Co-Chair. This is from Commissioner Allison Horn, and it reads as thus. Here's my comment from earlier in case this is the one you're talking about. On the concern you just raised, Ms. Hassan Tari, regarding no particular are feeling isolated or that they don't have a meaningful voice on the commission, how do you square that with the position 7F08 my district would find itself in? That seems like a major problem with this map. Could there be an attempt to have a more balanced 7F on this map?
I think this is why we are having discussions. There are people on the task force that we are continuing to reach out for to have a viable solution. Can I say this? And this is not for me to sound shady, right? And I really mean this. When we came and asked the question of, let's figure out what a joint ANC across the river could look like, all of the options only had River Terrace. It was very clear that having Keeman Park being the only SMD area that was lumped with all of the 7E commissioner was unfair. Why would that standard not apply in reverse? Let's have a real conversation about how this could be done. And I can promise you that we are amenable people. See, look, I smiled. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your patience, Keith. You've been asking questions definitely right tonight. And so definitely want to recognize your patience in that regards, for keeping you cool too. It's very important to be level-minded in robust discussions such as this here. With that being stated, I want to turn over to Co-Chair Blair as we talk about some of the steps moving forward, the finalization of our final vote the 28th, and what our reports look like. We can get ready to wrap it up for this evening. Co-Chair Blair.
Thank you. Just a note that I have gotten, someone who has my phone number has sent me a text message saying, and this is in reference to the mapping system. It says that the numbers are off in 20 SMDs beyond the 5% deviation, not counting the drafting error. So this is just something to check, not asking for an answer or resolution right here tonight. This person just wants us to be aware of the errors that are showing up in the mapping system. It also says the software shows at least 4 SMDs are not contiguous. So need to look at the errors on the mapping system to address those, to have the map ready for our next meeting, Monday the 28th. At that meeting, everything that we've discussed, these couple of things that I just mentioned, the errors that come out in the mapping system, all that should be ironed out. We will be looking to take a final vote. We want to give the public notice and let them know that that's the purpose. We're coming forward on Monday to take care of that. The next step after we decide that this is indeed the final map, then comes the task that my co-chair and myself will be putting together the report that this map will accompany, along with the assistance of a couple of task force members. I know there's 19 task force members, but to get this map done, we can't have 19 hands in it. It'll never get done. So we have a deadline to meet, and April 1st, we have to submit this report and whatever map we agree on, and that will be submitted to the subcommittee. And then we're done. April 1st, this task force dissolves and we revert back to being whatever role we were playing before, whether that's commissioner, civic association president, vice president, resident. There is no more task force once we can complete the report. The individuals that will be helping with the report, we will divvy up sections and then take it from there. It shouldn't take a lot of effort, but it will take some time. So if you're asked to participate and you don't have the time, don't be afraid to let myself and Commissioner Castone know. We want to have folks that have the time to commit over the next week or so. And that's all I have. Did we clear all our questions from the public that we could? I think we did.
Yes, we did, unless you wanted, we're not taking questions from the public, like hearing
No.
them. Okay, perfect.
We want to make sure our task force members, all our, anyone had a hand raised from the task force, you're clear?
That's it. Yeah, all good.
Okay, we're doing good on time. Thank you everyone for coming out. We appreciate the sacrifice you make from your family and your other activities that you could be doing this evening. We're almost there. We're pretty close to the finish line. And, you know, we have different opinions, as individuals always do. And even if we vote on this map, don't take it to mean that it's the perfect map. It is not going to be a perfect map. Perfection is nearly impossible, but if the public do wish to comment on what we submit, there's still the opportunity once this goes to council, they will be holding hearings. So this is merely a recommendation. It does not mean that this is exactly how Ward 7 is going to look for the next 10 years. Don't assume that that is the case. That is not the case. There's always room for change. Those of you who participated in the ward redistricting, you will know that the subcommittee submitted a map and it was changed. So just want to give you some words of encouragement for those who feel like they've been slighted or not gotten you know, their fair share of the pie. It's not over. We're going to still be friends and we're going to still be Ward 7. That's one thing that's not going to change. We're still going to be Ward 7. We're going to help each other out. We're going to participate in Ward 7 activities that help us get to know each other and work together on different projects. That is all. Are we all clear, co-chair?
All clear.
Yes.
28th.
I think
Commissioners Blair and Castile, for clarification, what time on the 28th are you proposing the meeting?
We're proposing 5 o'clock, as we've been doing for the last couple of meetings. We'll just close it out with another 5 o'clock meeting on Monday, the 28th of March.
Okay, so we can talk offline. We have a budget hearing on Monday. So staffing wise, I'll have to see if we can make that 5 o'clock. I just wanted to know, it might have to be 6 depending on our budget hearing, but just wanted to flag that for you.
Well, maybe we can straighten that out right now. Task force members, is there anyone here who cannot be here at 6 o'clock? We wanted to try to accommodate everyone, and we really have benefited from the support of Councilmember Gray's staff. We appreciate you more than you will ever know.
Yes.
Is there any task force member who cannot be here at 6 o'clock but could make it at 5? We want to, this is the last go round, so we want to make sure we accommodate as many task force members as possible.
I will not be available at 6 o'clock. We could start at 5 o'clock like we've been starting.
Thank you for that, Ms. Ruff. I think what I'm just saying is the office that hosts the Zoom, if we are not physically able to do that at 5, then we cannot meet because there will be no one to start the meeting. So that's why I was asking if 6 o'clock was a possibility.
So we will start at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock on the 28th.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's going to be a long day for us. It's a budget hearing and it's one that I cannot move. So thank you for that.
We appreciate you.
No problem.
And all of the staff. I see a lot of other staff have been in attendance. They've been quiet, but I see their names. So we appreciate you all because they work behind the scenes. They get the notifications out. They are sending out the emails to the mailing list of Councilmember Gray. And we appreciate you.
But I do want to tag on that. Please don't just rely on us. We do put it out in the newsletter, on social media, but each task force member has their own constituency. So we want to make sure that everybody across Ward 7 is aware of these meetings. So we appreciate your partnership in getting the word out as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, and Ms. Ruff, I took no disrespect. I was just letting you know that why we had to do it. That's it. I'm good. But thank you all for your invaluable time and attention to detail on this. Councilmember Gray, as you know, cannot be here for every meeting, but we talked to him about these meetings, so he's aware, and he wanted me to just say thank you to each of you for your dedicated service. You have families, you could be doing other things. This is a thankless and pay less job, so you are greatly appreciated for all that you do, especially the 2 co-chairs for spearheading this group of very diverse individuals with differing opinions. So hopefully we'll get to a place where everybody is somewhat okay with the process and get this moving and get to the finish line of April 1st. So thank you for all that you all do. And to my team who is on with me every time that we have a meeting, couldn't do this without them. The constituent services team, my communications director, my legislative team. So thanks to the staff and thanks to everybody and to the public for participating. Yes, so thanks to everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you all. Yes, we've been posting, I've been seeing posts on the ANC 70 Facebook page, as well as the Greater Ward 7 Facebook page, in addition to what your staff has been doing for publicizing these meetings. Thank you all and good night. That concludes everyone. Our meeting for tonight.
Good night. Thank you. I just need to save the chat.
Good night. Good night.